Hello, Susan Yasui here. So I've got chapter 20 for you entitled Florida. And this is from the book Through the Eyes of a Child, my daughter's stories about her mother's culture, myself being an American, and her father's culture, Japanese. So this one is about Florida. Here we go. Hello. My dad just came back from about 3 weeks in Florida. Have you ever seen the beaches on the Gulf side of that state? I hear that the sand is so white and so fine, about as small as salt granules. No one in my family is actually from Florida, but lots of lives on my American family side have crossed through there for one reason or another. My grandmother grew up in New York City, so when it was horribly cold in the winter, she and her family would travel down into Florida for some relief. I wonder if there are people in Hokkaido who spend some of the cold winter down in Miyazaki. My grandpa told me that when he married my mom's mother in June of 1942, they moved to Florida for the best 2 years of their lives. Her name was Carol, and she called him Sarge because he was a sergeant in the Army. They didn't start to have children until many years later, so it was just the two of them, carefree, totally in love with life and each other. Grandpa said that they lived in a cottage on an inland waterway near Palm Beach. The cottage had a little pier with a small rowboat tied to it. They'd get up very early in the morning before sunrise and row to the mouth of the Loxahatchee River, which flows out of the Everglades. The Loxahatchee River was a favorite home of alligators and sea cows, also called manatee. Carol and Sarge would go ashore and wait in the sand dunes until daybreak because no one was allowed on the beaches before then. It was wartime and the beaches were patrolled by the Coast Guard against German infiltration. One submarine did put several German soldiers ashore on a beach near Miami, but they were all arrested right away. At sunrise, these two lovebirds would run down to the beach going in opposite directions looking for the big seashells washed ashore during the night. They went very early to find the best shells before anyone else got there. They gathered up some beautiful specimens and sold them to the American Museum of Natural History in New York City on trips back up to visit Carol's mom, my great-grandmother. He said that sometimes they'd row their boat into very shallow water and spear a large crab and have a feast that night for dinner. Once Carol caught the largest snook caught in the area in years. The local fishermen did not seem to appreciate being outdone by a woman, but I've got a picture from way back then of Carol holding that fish. She surely looked proud. She had long dark brown hair from her Native American Indian father, but her face looked much the same as my mom's does. They did many other kinds of fishing too, getting enough to eat for themselves and often extra to be able to sell some for extra money. Grandpa said that Shuey's Inn on the Coast Highway would pay 10 cents per pound for any fish they caught. Shuey's menu listed perch and bass, and anything they caught would be served under one or the other of those two items on the menu. It was wartime, so there was no way Sarge could buy a car. Even bicycles were hard to come by. Grandpa said that at that time there was a department of the government called the Ration Board. Purchases of gasoline, bicycles, and even food had to be approved by this board to make sure there was enough to go around. Sarge convinced the board that he needed a bicycle to go back and forth to Camp Murphy for work. he bought a Victory bike, which was a bicycle completely stripped down to the bare minimum. Even so, it cost him the large sum of $35, which was a great deal of money then. A freighter ship carrying latex rubber from South America was blown up in the Caribbean by a German submarine. One day when Carol and Sarge were out on a seashell hunt, they found the beach littered with sheets of latex rubber. They gathered up several pieces and cut them to size, covering the bar of the bicycle so that Carol could ride side saddle while Sarge pedaled them around the countryside collecting fruit, going fishing, and enjoying the scenery. Sarge was shipped overseas after that, and Carol went to live in Idaho with her new father-in-law and his wife. Much life went on for both of them even before they started raising a family and had my mother and her brothers and sisters. But those 2 years in Florida were a nice long honeymoon for them, and my grandpa laughed with warmth in his voice and a sparkle in his eye when he told me of the long kisses he gave Carol whenever he'd leave for work. My mom and dad lived in Florida for a while too. They told me that they went off for a weekend trip along the Gulf Coast in celebration of their 4th wedding anniversary, letting the same fine sand filter through their toes as they walked arm in arm along the beach, stopping only to pick up an occasional seashell. I wasn't born yet, so I don't know for sure, but maybe they gave each other some of those long kisses too. Okay, that finishes the chapter on Florida, and I have another one for you soon, chapter 21. Thank you for listening. Bye.